Welcome to another episode of the Dragon's Den podcast. Today we talk to Chief Ray Landry. Ray joined the Lafayette Fire Department in 1965 and spent 23 years with the department, ultimately retiring as a district chief. He was with the department during times when there was a lot of change and growth. When trying to document the firefighting history of our area, there aren't too many that are better than Ray. It was a pleasure to have him come in and tell his stories the way that he wanted to tell them. Some were fun, some were serious. We talked about cooking at the station, training, rescues, station culture, and much more. We hope you enjoy the episode. And yes, we know there's a pop in the audio. We believe it's the cables and the boom mics. We'll get it sorted out, I promise. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy.
And then we start talking. It's all nonsense chat. All right, so we're ready to roll. All right. Welcome to the next episode of the Dragon's Den podcast. I am Chris Scott. We are here with behind the boards. We got Riley Grisham back behind us, handling our sound. We appreciate him. And then we are here with Ray Landry. Chief Landry, we brought Chief in because y'all know that one of my missions of this podcast, one of the missions is to preserve the history of our department. And through the eyes of the gentleman that lived through those times. So when I put out to the rest of the department, hey, who should I bring in? Who's somebody that, would be worth interviewing? Ray's name came up multiple times. And I called him up, made contact with him, told him what was going on. And he said that he would be more than happy to come in and share his time with us. So, Ray, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming on. We got to get some housekeeping out of the way real quick, though.
Okay, sure.
We got to do our sponsor, today's sponsor. Just like last time, or one of the times ago, Captain Colby's Cajun Seasoning. This is owned by your nephew.
My nephew.
I actually use this product. It's the only product it's the only seasoning product I use in my house. I've said this on the other podcast. We used to be a Tony's household, and once this came through the fire station, I tasted a little bit of it, and I kind of clowned Colby behind his back. Of course, I was like, "Oh, Captain Colby made a season. Everybody got a season, and blah blah blah, just normal trash talk." And then I put a little on the hand, tasted it, and did we might have something. Brought it back to the house, brought it back to my wife, Molly, and she says, we are no longer a Tony's house. We are Captain Colby's house, and that's what we're going to do here. So we've been Captain Colby's ever since, but he makes according to him and me, a phenomenal product.
That's right. Phenomenal is a good word for him.
Phenomenal product, and like I said, we love it. It's all we use. So that's our sponsor for the day.
So before we start the actual interview,
Sure.
I got to say something
Go ahead.
about Kobe.
Here we go.
No, actually,
we'll
it's
edit
all good. It's all good because we were raising Kobe. My sister was a single mom at the time, and he lived right next door. And Kobe was involved with me in the fire service per se. Always at the fire station. We'd go to the fire station, play ping pong. We'd play baseball and stuff, and he was always with me. And I knew from the get-go that when he was going to be an adult, he was going to be a fireman. So we tried a couple of times to get on, and we did not succeed when he got out of the Navy. He got on the fire department, and I'm glad because he's my son's captain at Station 9 right there, right by the house, actually. So
yeah, we're going to have Kobe on at some point. We're getting the logistics worked out of when that's going to happen, but Kobe's definitely somebody that we're going to see.
Well, 2 hours is not enough for him. I'm going to tell you that right off.
I know. I already know. When that happened with the Troy Martin episode, the Station 6 episode, I was like, they got too many characters in here for this thing to stay underneath 2 hours, but and it didn't. But Ray, you got a long storied history. I'm not going to go into I'm not going to go into the deep detail, but you came on in 1965. You spent 23 years there. Was one of the founding members of our first rescue unit. You got a lot of stuff that you did, and so I'm gonna keep it very brief. But the way that we always start these podcasts, or we try to, is we want to start with your history from the beginning. We want to talk about Ray Landry, the early years, what got you into the fire service, and then once we kind of go through that process, the floor is yours to take us down whatever topics you want to talk about. So
thank you.
The floor is yours.
Graduated in 1963 from Northside. And, back in the day, Vietnam was hot and heavy. And so the thing on everybody's mind when you were young was going to Vietnam. And I knew I wasn't smart enough to be able to survive in college. And I knew I was going to I thought I was going to be a blue-collar worker all my life. And I had planned for that. I even tried the oil field and stuff. That was actually too hard. But anyway, my dad was a retired policeman. And one day I walked up to him and I said, Dad, you think I'd make a good policeman? No way, buddy. He says, I don't want you to be a policeman. So you don't? He said, nope. He said, if you want to be a public servant, you go be a fireman. And, and it was strange coming out of my dad's mouth. And I did, really? He said, yes. He said, the firemen, to me, in comparison to the police department, they have all their shit together. Sure. They do. They had a strong union and stuff. And I said, well, and all of a sudden, I'm interested in becoming a fireman. So I went, put my name in for the application. And, so at that time, I was selling shoes, of all things, and I went from working in the oil field to selling shoes. And I was right down the road from Station 1 at Hyman's. And then after I passed the test, I would go walk to the fire station at Station 1. And I talked to the firemen. They were very nice. Those firemen would, you want to become a fireman? I said, yes, I do. And back in the day, you had to be 21 because you had to be voting age to become a fireman. So every morning I was there. And I remember Chief Broussard, Andrew F. Broussard was a guy, and they told me how to approach him if I wanted to be on the fire department. And they would make a special pot of coffee for him every morning. And it was, you had to put so many cubes of sugar and cream and stuff. And so they even told me that. And so I'd walk every morning before I'd go to work. I'd go talk to him. I said, Chief, you heard any word from City Hall today? And he said, and he would read the paper every morning. He'd turn it over and he'd look at me like that. And he says, nope, haven't heard that. So I'd get up. I'd fix him his coffee and I'd go back to work. So one day, I remember it was on a Friday morning. I walked in there and I said, Chief, you want some coffee? He said, yeah, get me a cup of coffee. So I got him a cup and I said, you heard anything from City Hall? So he rolls the paper over and he smoked a cigar every morning. He looked at me and says, why do you want to become a fireman? Then I told him, I said, well, you see, my dad was a policeman. And I think he told me that he wanted me to go be a fireman. And I said, I never thought about it before. I said, but the more I think about it, the more I think I'd be a good fireman. He said, can you start Monday morning? I said, and this was a Friday. I said, like, in 3 days. He said, yes. I said, well, yeah, sure. And I'd already talked to my boss at Hyman's, and I told him I was trying to get on the fire department. So it wasn't a big surprise when I got there. And I told him, I said, listen, Monday I'm going to be a fireman. So even in those days, in 1966, somewhere around there, training was on-the-job training. You learned at the fire station.
No academy at all.
No academy. And no training center yet. And strangely enough, I got put at Station 2 right by my house. And
now, Chief, I want to stop you right there. You're talking about these different stations. You said Station 1 was across from Hyman.
Downs.
So it's like, across from that. You said that. Yeah, okay.
And back in the day,
it was still the old. It was still in the same spot it's at today. You said because across from Don's is downtown off a million. Okay, same
actually
spot.
Back in the day, the station didn't even have numbers; it had names. Because Station 1 was called Central, or the Rock.
Yeah.
It was known as the Rock, and then Station 2 was known as Pelican, the Pelican Fire Station. Station 3, if I remember, was the Evangeline Fire Station. Station 4 was the Alexander. Station 5 was Johnson. Station 6 was Montrose. Station 7 was Cali Saloon. And that was many stations that we had back in that day. Well, I got stationed at Station 2, Pelican.
Sure.
And my first captain was Captain Glaston Lontier. I remember him, I can see his face right in front of me. And later on, strangely, I was a rookie fireman for him. And then his son came on the fire department, and he was a rookie fireman for me back in the day. And Captain Lontier he knew firefighting. The whole crew knew firefighting, and it was Captain Lontier was the captain. John Leger was the driver, and Clarence Duval and Robert Tron were the two firemen, and me. I was a rookie, and we rode out of Station 2. But let me take you to the day before then. Sure. Before my first day at Station 2, I'm all excited about being a fireman. I called my dad. I'm living at home. And it's only actually 3 blocks away from Station 2. I'm at on Sterling Grove Edition right there, and I hear the fire truck coming down the road. So I said, well, I got to find out what's happening. So sure enough, I get to the end of Sterling, and I think it was Simcoe, and there comes Station 2, Engine 2. Well, someone go find out what they're doing. So sure enough, and they had a car fire right across the street, right on the side of St. Genevieve Catholic Church. And that sucker is burning. And I'm a whole half a block away, and I'm observing that. And it was like on a Sunday morning early. I forgot where I was going. And so the fire truck gets in position, and the firemen come out, and they start pulling the 1.5 inches. It was 1.5 inches at the time. Yep. Pulling it out. And before he gets to charge the line, the car explodes. And the gas tank explodes on the car, and it enveloped almost everything, including the fire truck and the fireman too. And I'm there, well, what the hell? What did I do? Do I want to do that? And I'm sitting and I'm looking, and my truck is right there. And by the time it was a flashover, and by the time all the smoke had cleared, kind of, well, the line is hot. And so the fireman got up. Thank God it didn't burn him severely. They kind of gave him like a sunburn. Well, anyway,
sure.
He walked it in. They put it out, but it was on my mind. So the next morning, I'm there, and I said, "Well, I don't know if I made the right decision of becoming a fireman." And I kept wanting to ask Captain Lontier, "Does this happen every day? If it does, I think I'm in the wrong profession." So that day, and that was another thing he told me. They had hired us. I came up with Nuji Perdin and a guy named Robin at the time. He quit later on, and they hired us actually to go to the 3-3-3 shift. There was 3 days, 3 nights, and 3 days off, and that was the shift that they had hired us for. And then it was almost the beginning. So it was like the beginning of a new shift for all of the firemen. I think they might have tried it for about a month, and then they hired us to supplement manpower at the fire station. So that's what we were hired for. So when I went over there, Captain Lontier said, I said, look, I don't know nothing. He said, don't worry about it. He said, we're going to teach you everything. And they did. You did your station duties in the morning, and then we ate lunch, and then you were trained every day, 1 o'clock. And so he came back to me that morning. He said, listen, he said, we're going to work 3 days. And there was actually 3 officers at the time. There was 3 people on that shift. There was Glasson Lontier, John Leger, and me. So he said, I'm going to cook today. And then Leger's going to cook tomorrow. And you cook Wednesday. I said, I don't know how to cook. He said, you got 2 days to learn. I said, okay, cool. So, and look, this must be across the country. Every farmer knows how to cook. Sure. I'm serious. You can go to any fire station on the planet, and you can eat some good food.
Yeah.
So I figured it's one of the first things I learned to be a good cook. Well, anyway, Glasson cooked like some steak and potatoes and rice, and Leger cooked like some other chicken. And remember now, I'm living only 2.5 blocks away. So when it was my turn to cook, and he kept reminding me, he said, listen, T, you don't forget Wednesday, it's your turn to cook. You did. It's okay. So I called my mom. So my mom said, no problem. She said, I'm going to cook a spaghetti, and you can bring it. Well, I said, well, okay. Well, so I tried to sneak that spaghetti in that morning, but there was no way. I'm warming it up on the stove like I had cooked it. So after a while, we all at the dinner table, and my mom could cook, and so we eat. And so after a while, we get ready, washing the dishes and the pots and stuff, and we get ready to train. He said, oh, by the way, T, he said, this ain't no daycare. He says, the next shift, you better cook something. So, needless to say, I was at my mom's house learning how to make potatoes and cooking rice and stuff like that. And it worked out. You know, he was an excellent captain. And we just, but, you know, back in the day, we only had 7 stations. So we would roll out a lot. And one of the guys that had rank was a dear friend of mine, and he ended up being my mentor. And always, I was always on his shift. And I like that because I like that guy. His name was Bill Vizet. He was Chief Vizet, and when I went on, he took a liking to me, and I couldn't understand why. But I only stayed at Station 2 for about maybe 2 months, and then I got transferred to Station 1, and that's where I wanted to be. And he took me off aside, and he said, listen. And he said, this is what you got to do. And he says, every rank, you got to learn every rank you can. He said, when you're a fireman, you learn everything you need to do for a fireman. He said, when you're going to be a driver, you learn everything the driver needs to do. That way, when you're going to be a captain, you won't have no problem. You're going to know everything that needs to be done. You know, you're a fireman, and you know that there are some firemen out there that like to spend all of their time at the sub. Back in the day, we were talking about substations. Like a substation was way out from Station 1. Anything out of Station 1 was a sub to the guys that worked at Station 1. And we rolled out of Station 1 more than any other station, and I like that. As a firefighter, I learned what to do. I can remember like my second call was on University, and I think maybe, I know we were first in, and it was fully involved in the back section of the house. So the neighbor comes, and at that time, the assistant chief, which was Bill, was the assistant chief, and would ride in the truck, you know, with the firefighters. And we ride in the back of the truck now. So we pull in the 1.5 inches. We had wrapped the plug. We pull in the 1.5 inches out, and the neighbor comes in. He says, there's someone in the house. So Bill says, oh, hell, this changes everything. You know, we went from extinguishing the fire to rescue. So he turns around. Now you gotta remember, this is 1966, T. You know, in 1966, they had just put air packs on the fire trucks. That's it. We had canisters. They had a red canister that would strap around your neck, and that red canister has a charcoal filter in it. So when you put your face piece on, your mask, you would have to suck that air through the filter in order to be able to breathe. So it already took away 50% of labored breathing. You had to breathe it through. So I mean, you in a fire, and you and I were talking about physical agility,
Fitness, yeah.
yeah. Listen, T. When you were already all excited, and they just told you that, you know, they got a fire victim in there, and the fire's burning, and so Bill goes up to the engine 1 at the time, and he grabs a lifeline. He said, "Listen," he said, "you're going to have to go in there." And we waiting for Station 2 to come and Station 5 to come, and we were on the scene maybe, I don't know, 3 minutes. And he tells me, he said, "Listen," he ties a lifeline around me. He says, "You need to go in there." And I got that canister. And he says, "You need to go in there and see if you can find him." So my eyes must have been about this big, and my heart was beating. I could feel it in my throat. Then I said, he said, "He's probably right there anywhere in a bedroom or something," because it was late at night. So I said, "Okay." So he opens the door up, and I start running in. And when I ran in, I tripped over the guy.
Oh my goodness.
And then I'm looking. So when I turned and I looked at the guy, I'm on the floor, because you know how the heavy smoke is way on top, and so the guy's looking at me. And I'm there. Oh crap! So I jump up, and he wasn't moving. So I'm running outside. I went out through the door, And so Bill said, "What's wrong?" And I kept running. So he grabs the rope, and he jerks me like that. Well, I flip. So he said, "What's the matter?" I said, "He's right there. He's right there, right there." He said, "Well, go get him." I said, "Okay." So I'm running back of the house. When I tell you, this guy probably weighed about 200 pounds. Bill told me I picked up that guy like a wet rag. But he had died from smoke inhalation because it had been burning for a long time. Well, anyway, I grabbed him and I brought him outside, buddy. And Bill said I was carrying him like a little wet doll. So
Adrenaline was pumping.
It was something else. And then he told me when he got back to the fire station, he said, "You're going to have to take it easy on that fire call." He said, "You're never going to live." So I said, "Well, okay, Chief." And then, back in the day with the canister. And in fact, we started having air packs, but then we would have them, in the compartments of the truck. And we actually almost put together those quick release inside the trucks. Mm-hmm. And we were responding on the back of the truck. I'd like to talk about that for a little while.
It's your show, Chief.
Responding on the back of the truck was a different animal compared to what it is today. Because, and we were at Old Station 1. They had maybe 2 bays at Old Station 1, and they had an 85-foot ladder truck and engine 1. Mm-hmm. And when you'd ride, there were 3 farmers on the back of engine 1. And when you'd ride on that thing, you'd have to watch it because we knew where the dips in the road were or the railroad tracks, because the railroad tracks was a killer. Because if you wasn't ready and the back of that truck hit that railroad, it would throw you up. And then sometimes you looking clean over the truck, but you're holding on to the side of the truck. There was some times where, especially one time I remember, one of the firefighters was the big old guy, Robert Trohon. And we hit one of those tracks and I went airborne. And I let go they had a rail on the top you could hold 2 because the 2 on the side were holding on to the side of the rail, but then the guy in the middle was holding the top. And I let loose and I was airborne. So he grabbed me by the collar and he pulled me back on the truck. He said, "Hey, boy, where you going?" So I said, I wasn't going anywhere. I said, "But thank you very much." So he saved me. But,
Chief, nobody ever fell off? You ever had incidents of falling off or no?
No.
Okay.
Luckily.
Did you have to be strapped? Was that a requirement?
No, there was no belt, no straps, no nothing. We just
adrenaline was clamping that bar, huh?
It come close a whole bunch of times, but no, we were like a death grip.
Oh yeah.
But even back then, when they hired us, Lafayette Fire Department was evolving. We were coming from the dark ages, like the canister and the air packs and stuff, and we were growing. Lafayette was growing, and if you could put a timeline to it, all of a sudden we get a report that the funeral homes are not going to respond to help us anymore with fire victims. They're not going to be able to bring anybody to the hospital anymore because of insurance.
So back then, the funeral homes were sending the hearses instead. You didn't have ambulances back then?
No ambulances. That's right.
Wow.
What they had was just a hearse, and they would transport for us a burn victim or whatever. But then it was all of a sudden. In fact, it was early in my career. It might have been like 67 or 68. They told us, "You can't count on us anymore because the insurance won't allow us to do it anymore." So the idea of ambulance service and rescue truck service started floating around. In my career, I had Chief Andrew Broussard, L.F. Babin, L. Wayne Prejean, Jack Matuse, I'm talking about fire chiefs, and Harry Chauvin.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot. That's a lot of chiefs to 4 chiefs.
Yes, and one of the chiefs that in my opinion, that evolved more than anybody else that was ready to move forward was Wayne Frazier.
Right.
Wayne Frazier was working as a fire inspector at the time, and he had a vision for the fire service to move it forward, and he had that opportunity to move it forward. And then the idea started floating around. They said, "Boy, that'd be great." To me, I thought it was a great idea to have a rescue unit, and we started working on that. So even before he made chief, they had a guy named Russell Foote who was in charge of the Red Cross, and they had one of these big old rescue trucks, like it looked like a tank. And if in the timeline in the 60s and stuff, they're building I-10, and so we knew that we were going to have a big old interstate highway right in Lafayette, and we didn't even have a clue how we were going to respond to that. Anyway, we started equipping the big old truck, but it was tough. They had motor problems with it, and it was donated by the Red Cross. Well, so events started happening, and Wayne made chief. L.F. Boban was my second chief, and if you looked in the dictionary under L.F. Boban, it was firefighter, because he lived being a fireman all his life, and he was a great fire chief. Wayne was the one that brought us ahead in the fire service, and he was ready to move forward on a rescue truck. So if you look at some of the stuff that I sent you and all of the rescue schools that I was able to attend, it was Wayne that had planned all of that. We took diving courses, we took first aid courses. In fact, we were Lafayette's first EMTs. There was about 6 of us that made EMT, getting ready to respond with a rescue truck.
Did anybody else have rescue before that
No.
point? It just didn't exist.
It didn't exist.
So if you had to get somebody, if you had to pry a car door or something, you had to a Halligan or some kind of a pry bar. There was no equipment, and it was the fire department. They were still going, but you didn't have the equipment to do it, or y'all didn't do car wrecks at all.
They didn't have the equipment to do it. They had just invented the Hearst tool, the spreaders.
Right.
And later on came the cutters and other stuff.
Sure.
But Wayne saw we had an opportunity. So some kind of way, DOTD gets involved, Department of Transportation, and Roads and Transportation or whatever. And they sort of knew, or the politicians sort of knew, that they were going to have this large, and by the way, no ambulance service, no rescue, and no ambulance service at all.
That's crazy.
So Richard Juslov
with Acadian.
With Acadian saw an opportunity, and he started Acadian Ambulance. And I kept telling, I kept telling everybody involved, like the politicians or the mayors that I got a chance to talk to, I said, listen, the fire department needs to have rescue and ambulance service and make it all one, where we could transport. But that didn't work out.
Sure.
And I saw an opportunity for the Lafayette Fire Department to grow leaps and bounds, with ambulance service and the rescue service. The rescue service, we figured out after what was going to happen. And what some of the politicians was concerned about is that we had that whole stretch, from Vermilion Parish all the way to St. Martin Parish on I-10. If we had a wreck there, we couldn't rely on fire departments like in Henderson, Louisiana, or in those days like in Dusson or Scott that was right there. They couldn't do it. Lafayette was going to get it, and we were going to learn.
Right.
So they made a deal with us, DOTD. We got a much smaller fire truck, and we started equipping that. And Wayne was able, through his budget, to get some Hearst tools and equipped it. And the deal was that the DOTD was going to pay for the truck, with the understanding that we were going to respond.
Sure.
And so what happens is, and I know I know you've been on 17 years,
sure,
but we've been exposed to the effects of mutual aid. It's always been a problem. Parish, City, parish, parish. You know, so there was always a question about, well, you know, we live in the city, so I'm not going to let y'all go outside the city. If you're going to fight fires and people pay taxes for fire service, y'all can't go outside the city limits. You know, even back in those days. In fact, it was more severe back in those days.
Sure.
So there was an agreement that we were going to be allowed to respond on I-10, being that they were paying for the equipment,
Right.
even though it was outside the parish. So we loved that. And we first started where the rescue truck was at Station 1. I loved it. I made sure that I was on rescue. I made sure I was at Station 1, where all the action was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you about this later when we had an event called the Flying Squad. And that was all political too. Well, anyway, I get a call from communications, and they said, "Listen, can y'all respond?" And we hadn't made a call yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I said,
"You're talking about the first rescue call
call ever."
Right.
And I'm there. Well, I don't know. And he said, "Well,
ready? I don't know."
And it was Chief Bize. He said, "Can y'all make a rescue call?" I said, "Well, I guess we can, Chief." I said, "Where you want us to go?" He said, "I want y'all to go to Maurice." I said, "Maurice? That's not I-10."
Yeah.
He said, "Yes." He says, "It's bad." I said, "What do you mean bad?" He said, "They got an accident right downtown Maurice." I thought to myself, hell, you can't go 40 miles an hour in Maurice. How in the hell can you have a wreck? How in the hell can you have a wreck? Well, anyway, it was bad. A guy, and they had two families inside of a big old Cadillac that had wrapped itself around a telephone post, and we had 2 fatalities in there. And you talk about a quick learning process. We were able to use the spreaders to get one of the victims out the first time, and then another thing, you couldn't take nobody's blood pressure on that rescue truck. So that started the rescue. And then by that time, Wayne was the chief, and he saw a need for a rescue truck, and that's what we did. We started rescue full, and so again, there was always the question about mutual aid. And when I first walked in this fire station, I said, "That is a beautiful fire station here, right here in Cameco, Station 3.
Sure.
It's unbelievable. Back in the day, y'all didn't even have a fire truck. Y'all wouldn't even think. Y'all had volunteers, and people in the fire service, paid firemen, have different opinions of volunteers.
They do.
And so one day I walked in there and I told them, I said, "Let me tell you something." They were talking about the volunteers. And I said, "They do for free what you get paid for. So shut your damn mouth. They do for free, risk their lives, what you do to get paid for." So anyway, I shut a whole bunch of them up. In one of the events where they were trying to work out a deal with city parish, that's before we decided, politicians actually decided to go city parish. It was parish and the city.
Yeah.
So in order to appease some of the politicians, I forgot who the mayor was. I think it was Kenny Bowen, the mayor was. We started a firing squad.
The flying squad?
The flying squad.
Yeah. What was that? I don't think I've heard of that, but I don't know what it is.
The flying squad was just one company at Station 1 that would respond in the parish.
The whole
Got
parish.
Ray Landry written all over that, buddy. We got off. We're still on rescue. I went on the flying squad, and listen, that thing made 3 and 4 calls a day. And that's before, again, in the transition of us being a fire service. That's before we started doing medicals.
Mm-hmm. So was the flying squad was like a pumper, or was it
was
like
a pumper?
It was a pumper.
It was one of the old pumpers, one of them round cabs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was a Mac, and it was designed to help mutual aid.
Sure.
So when Cameco would have a fire, we were responding at the same time. There was when the call come over, we would respond at the same time, and it helped out. And the politicians, the mayors of the small town, and the firefighters especially loved that, because we would show up just when they're running out of water and stuff and needed some help, and we were there. So it was very popular. Sad to say, it didn't last long. And again, when we were responding out of Station 1, I'm gonna bring you back in history just a little bit. We had no communications division, no.
Good Lord.
We had fireboxes that you'd pull on the corner. I'm talking. We were antique, and let me try to explain to you and draw a picture. Go ahead, ask me a question.
No, I didn't know if that the only way that dispatch, like, how is that the only way that y'all got dispatched of fires, or from these pull stations? I mean, if you got no dispatch,
Yes.
that was it. Lafayette
That and
only
telephone.
went to.
That and telephone.
So who were they? Oh, they were calling the fire station directly. 'Cause
Yes.
you got nobody else to call. There's
No
no
911, no
Yeah.
nothing. They had the number to the fire station.
And those pull stations, would it do like the bells at the station?
Yes, I'm going to explain that in a little while.
Okay.
Exactly how we responded to it. And what amazed me when I was walking around the fire station here, when Chris was asking me, away from the microphone, what did I think about the fire service? Electronics and GPSs and computers, have brought us in the modern age. We weren't even thinking about that back in the day. We had one fire phone, and it was inside of old Station 1. And when the fire phone would ring, it would,
Loud,
heavy,
loud.
loud bell.
Yeah.
And then you had the communications officer, which was one of the firemen. We'd answer the fire department, what's the emergency? And they'd say, well, we got a fire, I don't know, down Vermilion Street or whatever. And we'd write it down. And then the assistant chief and the captain would come and figure out what other station was going to respond. And so we'd call like Station 2 on their fire phone, and they would respond with us, and Station 1 and go. So that's how it was done.
So y'all were kind of the dispatch. It would
We
come through
were
to
the
y'all, and then
dispatch.
y'all looked at the map and said which one needs to go to that,
We
and then
were
y'all
the-
would call. Y'all
that's
would
right.
call
We
them.
were the dispatch.
Okay, go ahead.
And then Lafayette, I call it inside the fire district of Lafayette, they had all these pull stations. And it wasn't nearly as big as Lafayette is today.
Sure.
So when you had a fire and you couldn't get to a phone, no cell phones, you'd run to the corner and you'd press the button. And the button electrically would send it to Station 1, and it would ring out the bells independently, the numbers. Most of them had 5,000 numbers, like 5523. So you would do 5 bells, 2 bells, and 3 bells. So you had to count the bells.
Oh man.
When the bells were ringing, 5, 5, 2, 3, and then we had a map with an index. You see, 5523 is at the corner of Jefferson and Johnson. So we knew where we were going. And then the captain and the driver would get to the map and spot the plug.
Sure.
So, all of this stuff can be done electrically while you're responding today. So even back in the day, our response time was somewhere around 4 and 5 minutes. Once the bell would come in, sadly, probably 80% of the fire calls back in the day were false alarms on the boxes.
That's still the case.
Yeah, on the
It's
boxes.
still hot.
But it was neat.
If you missed, if you
you
heard
missed the
4,
number, yeah.
if you
But it
thought
would
you
keep
heard
ringing.
4,
It would keep ringing.
if you missed it, you could catch it on another run. So it's like Morse code, but
Yes.
it kept rolling.
Yes, and getting back to that flying squad,
Sure.
we again, and I don't know what happened. By this time, Chief Vizay had passed away, and my assistant chief was Chief Blanchard. So we still riding with the flying squad. And so one day they used to do 5 bells at the fire station. At Station 1, they do bang, 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 and wherever you were at Station 1, where you had to go in the apparatus room, and that's what they would do. So when you said he calls 5 bells, and we get there. So I was a captain. So Jimmy looks at me and he said, "You know where Pecan Island is?" I said, "Well, actually, I do." He says, "I want you to take the flying squad." He said, "I want you to go to Pecan Island." I said, "Really?"
That's a trip.
And listen, and I tell you, that night, they had a cold front that passed through, and it was probably like 26 degrees.
But for the viewers that are not familiar with this area, where in relation to Lafayette, about how far is a trip on a fire truck to Pecan Island?
Oh, that's 50 miles. You know, it's within 30 to 50 miles.
Probably only
It's
going
like-
50 miles an hour too.
It's like, yeah, and top end
this is
was
not a-
55 miles an hour.
Yeah, your 4-minute response time is not going to be
It's
4
not even
minutes
close.
anymore. Yeah.
Well, anyway, so I'm looking at him. I'm waiting for the joke.
Yeah.
So he says, get your ass in the truck. Let's go. So I said, oh, you serious? He said, yes. I said, what? And then I started thinking, you know, what the hell are sending us to Pecan Island for?
Yeah.
I said, what do they have over there? He said, it's an all storage tank that caught on fire and it was struck by lightning. And it's cold. It's 26 degrees. I'm talking about cold.
You were a captain at the time, you said?
I'm a captain.
Okay.
And there's no, and LF Boban at the time was the fire chief. And I don't know how that mutual aid happened. I never asked. So he says, just go to Pecan Island. I said, where? Oh, he said, from what they tell me, you're not going to have a problem. He said, you're going to be able to see that fire miles away. I said, okay.
Okay.
So I get the crew, and he said, where we going? I told the driver, I said, where we going? I said, Pecan Island. He looks at me, he says, is that a road?
Yeah.
I said, no, like Pecan Island, next on the other side of Kaplan, Louisiana. He said, what we going to do over there? I said, I don't know. He said, they told me we would know, we would see it. So we were responding.
So now, was there a fireman at the time? But they had to ride when it was
Three.
3 on the back.
Three
all
on
the
the
way to-
back
so
and
that would
26
happen an hour.
degrees for over an hour.
It is so funny. And then listen, there's two of us. I'm sitting on the captain's side
Oh my God.
and the driver, and the heater's not working. Now remember, this flying squad is an old fire truck.
Sure.
You know. So when we got on the scene, I couldn't even find my firefighters.
Yeah.
They had got up in the hose bed
That's exactly where I would have been.
where the tarp was.
Yeah.
And they're way up over there, and it's freezing. But he was right. We could see the fire glow 30 miles away. And we finally get there, and sure enough, that thing is burning. And so, you know, when you have one of these big fire storage tanks, all storage tanks, they have a big old berm and big old levee all the way around. So we on the backside of that levee, and they wanted me to pump some foam. But it had been about 2 or 3 hours that thing was burning, and the metal on the outside had started to cave in, so we just had to bank shot it. And we had a big, large monitor on that fire truck that we were using to spread the foam. And then we all geared out because it's so damn cold, but we're right by the fire. So all of a sudden, and look, I am drafting from a coolie in the back of the fire truck. Everything's okay. And we're spreading foam. All of a sudden, I noticed that I was on the backside and my face shield starts to melt. And I did, what the hell? And I can't even put my gloves are steaming. And I said, what's going on? But we found out later that, you know, oil through a burning process will burn all of that oil. And then when it gets onto that big old heavy crude, the fire's going to be much hotter. So then, but we're still okay because, you know, it's so cold and we're on the backside of that levee. But when I turn around, I'm looking at my fire truck, all of the lights are melting.
No.
Like the signal, because the signal lights were on top of the fender.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at that and I said, oh shit. I said, well, anyway, we put the fire out and it's probably 8 hours later, we go to the fire station and Bob Ann was the fire chief. And he walks in and he says, what the hell you did to my fire truck? All of the plastics are burnt and melted. And then come to find out, we pumping salt water through the pump. And evidently salt water and the pump packing
Yeah.
has an effect on that.
They don't mix. Yeah.
And the more it got, the more I was in trouble because I was officer in charge. And so that started a whole lot of other deal. But that that flying squad might have lasted a couple of years, and that's where we got the name Rock Stars. They would call us rock stars. Anybody that worked at Station 1 on the flying squad called us rock stars. So it was known as the Rock.
It was Now they renamed, to let you know, they renamed Station 2. Ever since I had come on, that was known as the Rock off of Mud. But you're saying originally it was 1.
Oh yeah,
But
Station
then
1.
I think
Yeah.
what happened is because 1 doesn't operate fire trucks anymore. It's just central. It's just
That's right,
It's
just
all
administration.
admin. So that 2 takes the brunt of the calls. It used to be 1, and now 2 takes the brunt of the calls. So I think they just shifted the name
Yes.
over
Yes.
as the Rock.
Well, they would say, Jim, what station you work at? Station 1. Oh, you're a rock star.
Rock
That's
star.
what they would tell you. But I loved it. I loved every bit of it. I love rescue. And let me tell you, we ran into some strange rescues, all in all. And that was one of my favorites. And I was learning, had the opportunity to go to the ranks. And then I went to fire prevention. I had an opportunity to go to. You want to ask me a question?
But yeah, but I think that's your nephew had said that you had spent some time as an arson investigator, and then you came back to the line. So well, that's how the structure is now. You would come off of suppression, you'd become an investigator, and then that's how it would work. I don't know how it worked for you, if it's still that same structure. But yeah, you're leading right into that.
Yes. I'm probably one of the only guys on the department that ever got demoted.
I can give you a few more names.
It wasn't nothing I done. I guess you can say it was something I didn't do.
Sure.
Because I was, and I'm not going to mention any names, but there's some politicians involved for sure.
We'll talk off camera.
Yeah, no, it's okay because I won't name anybody. When I went as a arson investigation and fire prevention, first a fire prevention work, you'd go do inspections and stuff, and
Right.
I like dealing with the public, but I hated telling the guy, well, you got to do this and you got to do that because of fire dangers and stuff. Well, that worked okay. So Wayne saw my potential, and he put me in charge of we had to call a little film, what we call fire prevention Cajun style.
Okay.
And I made a little clip. We did some little skits of people doing stupid things and the house burning up or blowing up, and it was set to Cajun music, which was really nice.
That's what
Especially for me.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
And so when I was doing that, he put me on a project. Again, I'm bringing you into that time zone. We didn't even have self-serve gasoline stations. It was only full service. So when you would go to a service station, you'd get your tires filled, your windshield washed, all of that. And then some guy's bright idea said, we can sell cheaper gas if we have self-serve. There was an organization in Lafayette of all of the service station owners that had full service.
Mm-hmm.
They were a little concerned about Lafayette allowing self-serve gasoline stations to come because we could hurt their business naturally.
Sure.
So we were going to have big meeting one day, and we did because self-serve was coming. And Wayne told him, there's nothing we can do about that. It's coming. Well, anyway, it came.
Sure.
And when it came, some of those full service stations, they had to shut down. And Wayne was because Wayne was in fire prevention before he was the chief. Mm-hmm. And Wayne pulls me in his office one day and he says, listen, he said, now this is about 2.5 years after I'm in fire prevention. And he said, listen, we got to do something with the service stations that are closing down. I said, what do you want to do? He said, well, those places have underground storage tanks that have hundreds, thousands of 50,000 gallons of fuel. He says, and I want you to make sure that those people that go out of business are following the fire code when it comes to abandoning some underground storage tanks. I said, okay. I said, what do you want to do? He said, I want you to go find out the location. How we doing for time? We all right?
We're fine. Yeah, we're fine.
Then he says, I want you to go find who owns the property, find out if they abandoned the underground storage tanks, find out if they did it right. If they didn't, send them a registered letter. Tell them that they have a year to comply. that they're going to have to do something with the underground storage tanks.
Right.
So it's about a 6-month process. I'm doing. I show up in his office with 32 locations. So I said, what you want me to do with this? He said, I want you to send him a registered letter citing the code word for word. And he says, tell him they got a year.
Right.
So this certain politician was in office.
Sure.
We sent the letters out. It didn't take a week.
Yeah.
Wayne calls me. And he says, whenever he needed me in his office right away and I was in trouble, he'd always tell me, come to my office and break both your legs to get here if need be. So he had called me on the radio a couple of times.
Right.
And told me that. So I knew I was in trouble. So I got to their office. Then I said, what's going on? He said, the mayor wants to see us. I said, okay. He says, what did we do? And that same mayor had taken the keys out of my vehicle when I was on an inspection one day. He didn't think it was right for me to leave my keys in the unit while I was making an inspection. Well, anyway, I'm going back to the real important part.
Right.
So we get to the mayor's office, and the mayor's secretary is looking at us, and she says, y'all in deep trouble? No. So Wayne says, what's the matter? Can't say. So after a while, the mayor says, come in, and we go in there. And he looks at us, and he's got all the letters in his hand.
Yeah, that you had wrote them up.
And he said, look, it's Mutt and F and Jack, Mutt and Jack, right there. And them two monkeys are going to ruin me politically. And he throws the letters at us. I'm looking at Wayne. I said, what the hell?
Yeah, because you're just doing what he asked. You're doing the thing that he asked you to do. Fire code. Right.
Both of us.
Right.
So he looks at us and he says, won't be nothing done about this. I'm telling you to drop everything right now. So I was already fed up with fire prevention, sort of. So after a while, he lets us out of his office. So I said, what are we going to do? He said, we're going to leave it alone. Sadly, some of those locations are still in town today.
Sure.
But anyway,
Yeah.
I get back to the fire station and it killed me. I went on vacation
Yeah.
and I took half my vacation. And when I got back, I told Wayne, I went back down on the line. Well, he says, the rules are you go back down the line, I got to demote you. I said, I don't care.
Really?
I took a demotion from captain all the way to driver just to get off from fire prevention and go back down the line.
Did you get put in fire prevention? Did he basically say, here, you're going to do this thing, or you volunteered, or you wanted to get into fire prevention?
Well, good question,
Sure.
Chris, because back in the day, I love firefighting. And I knew it was a perfect occupation for me. I knew from the get-go.
Right.
I knew it was dangerous, but it was exciting every day. Every day was a new day. And in 23 or 24 years that I was there, it seemed like 24 days. That fast. I should have never taken fire prevention. It just wasn't me. It wasn't where the action was. I knew I had made that mistake, and I knew I'd given my word to Wayne. We were kids together in the same neighborhood. And Jack Matuse was the other fire inspector. And when I saw the opportunity, even though I was going to have to take a demotion, I was going to take it, and I did. And then he put me at Station 7 over there.
Oh, he stuck you at the sub, huh?
with one of my best friends. And I was a driver, and he was a captain. But that only lasted for about 8 months because it made me first on the list for captain, seniority-wise. And so
You pop back up.
yeah, the captain's room came up about 8 months later, and I was back on the line as a captain. So everything worked out. But that's the reason.
Yeah, I know how you feel. About 3 years in, my wife she was like, hey, I want you to work 9 to 5. We were going to have 2 young kids at home. And so I took a training position and I felt the same way as you. I took it because she was kind of banging on the door like, hey, I want you home every night. But as you know, I knew that it wasn't where I wanted to be. I knew the line was always where I wanted to be. So even early in that process, I would tell her, hey, can I go back to the line? She said, no, because I was like, well, I'll stay in training as long as you want.
Yeah.
But my end goal is to get out of training and get back to the line, because similar to you, I knew that it's the perfect job. It's the perfect job for me. So,
and the promotions came quick because we were still growing.
You're expanding
in Lafayette,
right?
We were as a fire department. We were I made fireman, and then 3 years after that, I was driving, and then 3 years after that, I was a captain.
Yeah, that's way fast.
So
it's way fast.
And even as a captain, I think I might have spent. I think after 12 years, I was a DC. And I had 1 day seniority on New Perry, and it was 6 years before he made DC after me.
With 1 day of seniority.
1 day
he had to
seniority.
Wait 6 years.
Yes, 1 day seniority.
Oh, that hurts.
And then I got put in Station District 3, and again, when we were talking about physical fitness, we were a young fire department, and one day we got an invitation to go play softball in Houston, Texas.
Right. Well, I want to set people up for this real quick, because what I had asked you was, hey, how early can you make it to the station? You said the way this whole thing came up was, you said, I'm up at 6 a.m. every day riding my bike. I was like, 6 a.m. every day? And I was like, physical fitness must be important to you if you're getting up at 6 a.m. So I was like, hey, did you do that as a fireman? And you said, yeah, maybe not the riding the bike part, but fitness was important to me. So that's how we ended up landing on this.
Absolutely. Well, it didn't take you long to learn that you needed to be physically fit to be a fireman.
Sure.
I mean, you didn't have to be an Einstein for that. So, I mean, even at the station, we had some gyms, we had some weights, and and we would physically. We had a little small baseball team, but when we got invited to that Houston Fire Department Invitational Tournament, and look, we went over there in some cutoff blue jeans. See, we had got a T-shirt said Lafayette Firefighters. And we went over there and we made an impact. We could run fast. We could hit the ball. And I think we got in the losers bracket on Saturday and played till 1 o'clock on a Monday morning. But I think we came out second, and then we got back to Lafayette and said, "Oh, that's what we want to do."
Making a team.
We had the
let's
gold
go.
team. The gold team started.
Yeah.
And I don't know how fire service is today. Back in the day, it was a family thing.
Sure.
We were close, like a family, from the very beginning. And then when we started the baseball team, because some of us were becoming parents and nanans of our workers and stuff, and we were that close. And you knew beyond any shadow of a doubt,
right,
as firefighters, that you could go in that building, that fire raging, and you know that you were going to have no trouble. That firefighter right in the back of you, ready to do whatever it took to pull you out of there, or to do whatever it took, and that baseball team reinforced that. We became a stronger family, and like I said, we were growing in the fire service, and a lot of us made officers. And I went to Station 5 with my crew. And I can name them all to you probably. Most of my crew, I had. We talked about Skip Boudreau,
sure,
David Hyatt. Let me see, my drivers: Gerard Saunier, Kirk Berg, firefighters Terrence Gahn, Buster Gann, Steve Spain, Ronnie Lontier. Glass and Lontier's son was there, and back then they had we had moved when they shut down Station 1. We moved to Station 5 with everything, and everything rolled out of Station 5. And I'm going to look at my list right here.
While you're looking, did you play ball? Because that's one thing that I wanted to get to with Troy, which we might have him back at some point. But did you play ball with Troy Martin during that time period?
I don't think so, no.
No, y'all separate. Because that was one of his big things. Because when I mentioned Troy Martin, my dad knows him because my dad played a lot of softball.
Yeah.
And him and the Lafayette Fire Department would meet up pretty often. So Troy loved the softball, still loves baseball, and I didn't know if y'all had y'all ran in the same time period. So apparently this softball team had run over multiple decades, clearly,
Yes.
probably from the late 70s. When did it kind of pop? In the late
running
into
think
the
early 70s. I would think that we started because, like I said, we were all young.
early 70s into they probably ran that hard until the mid 90s, probably late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, because
when I came on, it was we had a team, but it was just we were kind of messing around. But
I remember still playing in Pelican Park was open,
right,
just opening up. But I mean, we were a scrappy little team, and like I said, we were the gold team. So if you remember the gold team,
that was a good team.
You were the
better
elite,
yeah.
And so we had like a blue team.
Yeah, backup team.
And then I think we even had a brown team that started up after.
Oh, brown, huh? That's the color y'all picked.
We ended up in the
shorts.
industrial league together.
Okay.
Both fire departments. So we actually ended up playing them in competition.
Yeah.
That never worked out. So
I think there was a tournament. I heard a story, and it was probably after your time where the gold and it was a tournament, and the gold and blue team met each other in the finals. Like they were the best two. Like
Yeah,
obviously somebody
it could
could
be,
win,
yes.
but they were the best two teams on the whole thing. Now, obviously somebody had to win, but softball was a big thing. But I'm gonna let you dig into your list because we got a couple of things that we definitely want to talk about. I don't know if you wanted to dive into it, but you have multiple life-saving awards, and I'm not going to give you any medals today. Number one, because I don't have them, but you have multiple, and for a fireman to have the opportunity to get a life-saving award is a pretty rare occurrence. I've never even had the opportunity in my career to run across that. But you've got multiple. So you've got a bunch, and I want you to go into whatever ones that you want to go into. If you've probably got about, I have the list. You've got about 5 of them. So, go down that process. You got a lot of them pretty early in your career. It's not like you had them when you were on your way out. Some of them you were either a young fireman or driver that you started stacking them.
As a fireman, as a rescue worker, I had the opportunity.
Sure.
Early in my career because, but later on when I made rank, I was as a district chief. Remember, I made rank early.
You did fast
after 12 years. So early in my career, I had the opportunity. I guess you can say I was at the right place at the wrong time, or the wrong place at the right time, whatever.
Sure,
whatever it is. But yes, and it's never a good thing.
Never. No. No,
we arrived. Some fire scenes. They had that one in particular. They had this 3 kids involved in and they were all burn victims. But one little girl that I ended up giving rescue breathing to ended up. She's the only one that lived out of the 3. Although all 3 of them we attempted to save their lives, and we saved that one, and it happened to be the one that I was working on. But then one rescue that stands in my mind more than any other one, it was the fact that it involved 2 other firefighters, Joe Green and Eddie Green.
Okay.
And we were at Station 1, and I'll tell you how that happened. We were it was raining, like it rained all day and it rained all night. And this is about 1:00 in the morning now. Chief Blanchard comes into the district chief's room, and that's where I'm at. I'm a district chief now.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I need rescue. I said, so I'll get up. And I said, well, okay. I don't ride rescue. I would ride sometime with rescue to go see what we had to do.
Sure.
But we had a rescue squad, and it was Eddie Green and Joe Green on rescue.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what we got? He said, listen closely. So whenever he would tell me something like that, that's like going to Pecan Island.
Yeah.
He said, this is what I want you to do. He said, I want you to take the aerial and go to Cade, Louisiana. Did Cade, Louisiana.
Yeah. Also not our, for those listeners, not our district.
So again,
not even I am parish.
And he says,
no, not even close.
Listen to me carefully. Because he had been on the phone with the sheriff department.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have made it St. Martin Parish, maybe St. Lance, I forgot. Mm-hmm. Anyway. And he says, it's bad. He said they got one drowning victim already. So I said, hell, it had been raining. So I didn't realize, we were sleeping all night. I didn't realize that it had rained 30 inches of rain. So he says, I want you to go with rescue on the aerial and go to Cade. He said, there's some people trapped at the bottom of a ravine in Cade. I said, okay. And he says, you're going to encounter many vehicles on the side of the road that is flooded. Do not stop. They're waiting on you in Cade. I said, okay. So, all kind of stuff. When you're trying to size up a fire or any kind of emergency, you're thinking of all kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, I said, what the hell? So we get there and we driving up the Cade and they got lights everywhere. And I said, that must be it. Right before you get in the Cade, there's a big old ravine on the road. And it's probably to the top of the road, probably 12 feet to the bottom. There's a big old railroad trestle bridge on our right that's at the top of the road, 12 feet, maybe 400 feet wide. It had rained so much, the back side of that was just full of water, and it's funneling through that trestle underneath that railroad bridge. And when we got there, there's the aerial, and I'm shining the light of it, and they have a car. And the car is right in the middle and there's a coolie there, right in the middle where that coolie's at, but it's stuck on a railroad, on a street sign this way, on a highway sign, and it's tilted over this way.
Right.
And it's not allowing it to go down.
Yeah.
And that water's just going through it. And I did. Oh, hell. So when I told my two firemen, he said, what are we going to do? I said, listen, I want to turn this aerial around and I want to back up. Now, I don't know how deep it is, So, and I'm telling Eddie was the driver. And I tell Eddie, I said, listen, I want you to back up on the road, which what we thought the road was, because everything for thousands of feet is all on the water. Then I said, stay on the road as much as you can. I said, okay. When we got closer, we started backing up real slow on that road. But then we had to contend with the outriggers, because it's a two-lane highway.
Yeah, where are they going to land?
Well, anyway, we were pretty calm about the whole thing, really. And some guy had the insight to throw a lifeline on the back of that car and hook the bumper to it. I don't know how they even did it. And the bumper and the whole rope was stretched all the way to a bulldozer. And they had all of the fire department from St. Martinville or whatever, and they on the backside where that rope was, staying above the water, which was, when we found out, about 12 feet deep. Mm-hmm. So when I thought I was close enough to the vehicle, and I'm looking at that vehicle, and by this time all of the fire department's in there, and the police department had lights, and we had no problem seeing. That water was so loud you couldn't hear yourself think. The news media's over there. This is all a big deal. So I walk up there, and the incident command commander comes up to me, and I said, what's up? He said, well, there's two people in that car. And I said, I don't see nobody. Oh, he said, they're there, in that car. And remember, it's tilted. So I said, well, okay. Well, so we take Eddie, and then Joe Green, my Captain Green, can't swim. And I told him, I said, look, whatever you do, just stay on top of the aerial. So Eddie and I were trying to set the outriggers. And I know you're familiar with the aerial because you have to transfer from the outriggers to the boom.
Sure.
You have to stick that pin in, and electronically it will send the power to that boom.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So as the outriggers are out and it picks up the truck, you got to pull the pin and insert the pin in the boom.
Yeah, we didn't grow up with that one. That was a different. Yeah, I didn't.
Well, that's how it all is.
Yeah.
So I told Eddie, I said, listen, and I can see that car is way out in there, and I'm there. We had to go underwater just to try to find out where the outriggers, because if you look at the fire truck and the distance the outriggers would go, and we're only on a 2-lane highway, we didn't even know if we were in the middle of the road Because if you said that outrigger and that outrigger is in the ditch or off the road, it can't level itself, which is what it needs to do.
Right.
It just so happens we're in the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
So Eddie slips and he falls and he goes actually underwater underneath the truck, but he catches the outrigger on the backside and he gets up. So I told him, I said, "Where you going, boy?" He said, "Chief, I thought I was a goner." So,
Well, now Joe couldn't swim. Could Eddie swim?
Eddie could swim.
But it was moving water. You got water is
The
flying.
water was going 100 miles an hour.
And water's all over the road.
Man.
And so, and we're right in the middle of it now. Evidently, the people who we eventually saved
Sure.
were turn around, don't drown. They didn't hear that part yet.
Oh no.
Well, so I mean, and the water had flooded the car, and then this is 3 hours after. Now all that water is coming out that backside of that trestle. So we set it in position. So there's Eddie's at the boom, and Joe and I get inside the bucket,
Yeah.
and I'm headed out towards the car. And all of a sudden, I see the lady come out the car from the back window, and she gets on the trunk, and I'm about that far from her on the trunk, and I'm out of. I can't go in close.
Oh no.
You can make that noise.
Yeah.
And I'm there. I said, and I'm trying to talk to her, and it's loud. I said, "I will be back. I promise." And I'm talking to the lady, and she says, "What?" And I'm trying to explain to her. I said, "I will be back." I said, "I can't reach you. I don't have no more aerial."
Yeah.
So again, the news media is there.
Don't screw it up.
And I'm there, man. I'm coming. So as I'm coming back, all of those guys on the side, they're screaming at me. What the hell, man?
Yeah,
And
like you leaving. Yeah.
You know, North Side firefighter language. I said, "Y'all need to shut the up.
Really?
I can't hear myself think with all the noise."
Yeah.
So the news media called all together. But the lady said, I'll edit all of that. So I get back on the truck and I tell Eddie. Eddie said, "What's the matter?" And I said, we're out of reach.
Yeah.
So I said, "Listen, I need to pick up the outriggers." He said, "Okay." So we picked up the outriggers. So he's backing up the truck and he said, "Psh, psh," and I did. After a while, I got enough. And I run all the way from the back and I get to the cab and the cab's almost underwater. The water's coming through the cab and almost to the top of the platform. And I told him, I said, "I want you to back up until I tell you to stop. You understand me?" "Yes, Chief." So then I backed up and I said, come on. And I knew I had about 20 feet or 15 feet
You knew what
to
you
be
needed.
able to reach her.
Right.
And I did. Back it up. And listen, now we're working underwater. When I'm telling you that water is just going everywhere. So then I said, "Let's go." So we set the outriggers and I head out again. So this one guy who was a rescuer from St. Martinville, he comes in and he wants to be a part of the rescue. So Joe decided to stay back.
Mm-hmm.
So we head out. And she's on the back of that car. What had happened before, they had a drowning. What had happened before is that they had 3 people in the vehicle. And their uncle, the older guy, was on the back of the trunk. And they shoved an aluminum boat in the current, hoping that he would catch the aluminum boat. And when the aluminum boat got close to the car, he lunged for it. And when he hit the end of it, it flipped over and they found him in the next parish or somewhere.
Cool.
Anyway,
Oof.
and they had told us that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking at that lady and I said, "You wait right there. I'm coming back. I'm coming to get you. Do not jump for the bucket." She said, I ain't going to jump. I said, "Okay." So I said, at the bottom of that bucket, they had that sprinkler head.
Correct.
So I didn't want to put that sprinkler head, so I put that bucket right on the end of the trunk, like that way I could steady it, because we out extended straight across, and that thing is flimsy.
It's bouncing, yeah.
Well, so, and the lady was healthy,
Sure.
if you get my drift.
Yeah, we got it.
And she just jumped in the bucket.
She jumped.
And so, I mean, she's thanking us stuff. So I, I put the handle in reverse to get out. She said, wait, my husband is in the car. I said, what? I said, your husband's in the car. So I take it and I put it back on. This guy jumps out the back seat, puts one leg on the trunk and jumps right in the bucket. And so I'm pulling it back. Right when he's jumping, he's in there, I'm pulling it back.
Yeah.
So we pull it back. So we got the wife and the husband. The grandfather or the uncle had drowned. And then everybody's clapping for us right there. Hey. So the news anchor lady came and she said that she had witnessed the whole thing on film and stuff. And then, it got carried away a little bit because that's the one with the VFW and stuff. And I got, they wanted to give it. It hit the news media. It hit Channel 10. It hit the newspaper where 3 firemen, did this water rescue and stuff. But it was a good rescue from the get go.
Right.
And
that's something you really train for, right? That's something that it's you got to show up and figure it out. Like I guarantee it that when you did your 1 o'clock trainings, they didn't say, all right, let's go see how far we can sink this thing into a pond and then swing it out over. And like you'd never encountered that, I'd imagine, correct? You had never trained on it, never encountered it, but you got to kind of figure it out on the fly.
Who would figure that you would need an area to do a water rescue?
Yeah.
And they had called us. In fact, the sheriff department gave us a letter of accommodation to the fire chief. And he said that if it would have been for the firemen, those 2 people. And another thing, we taking I'm bringing them in, and halfway from the car back to the truck, the rope breaks, and the car flips over, and it goes down the coulee.
No way.
I mean, it was like maybe a minute and a half.
That footage has to exist somewhere. It's going to bother me that if it's lost, but it's like we've got all this stuff. It's on film somewhere. I'm not going to go track it down, but to think that we saw that, like people saw it, I want to see it now.
The fireman came, patting us on our back and stuff. Great job, great. They finally figured out that I wasn't close enough the first time,
right?
And it's hard to judge something on the water and stuff.
Sure. No, you good. I was thinking about your next one not your next one, not in the timeline. If you don't want to get into it, it's not that big of a deal. But in around 69, you have you saved another fireman. You got an award for saving another fireman. I don't know if you wanted to dive into it.
Okay, it was at a baseball game.
Okay.
And one of the firemen were tagged out at home plate.
Mm-hmm.
But then he had a concussion and started having some seizures. And he stopped breathing.
Oh.
And so, I knew what to do. So I just, give him rescue breathing and helped him. And he did. He's still living today. Good friend of mine.
That's cool.
Good friend of mine. And then one of the firefighters came and he says, you're going to get a life. I said, I don't want a life-saving award. He said, you're going to get one. I said, I don't want it. And he took it up the chain of command, and that's what it was. But it was a good save. He was in a bind.
Yeah.
And it's because of the concussion that he started having these seizures, and then he locked up and couldn't breathe, and I just gave him rescue breathing. And so I told him, I said, I'm not about to kiss you.
Okay. Any other ones that you wanted to, as far as rescue-wise, anyone you wanted to cover?
I have something to ask. So we talked a little bit about the trucks and a little bit about the air packs, but what was your turnout gear like back when you first started?
Say again?
Your turnout gear.
Yeah, what turnouts did you have?
Listen, that's something else that I noticed. I go to Station 9 and visit my son and Captain Kobe all the time.
Yeah.
You can't even go in living quarters with your turnout gear.
Right. Yes.
We never washed our turnout gear back in the day. And it was as protective as the ones you have today. Of course, back in the day, you just had the coat and you had your boots.
Coat and boots.
And that was it. Yeah, you didn't have the pants. You didn't have the Nomex hoods. You didn't have the you didn't have none of that. You were on your own, sort of. And to see today, the precautions that are taken to, you can't even go in the apparatus room. You can't even go in the living quarters.
Yeah.
We didn't have no washing machines for turnout gear. And look, when we were on duty, khaki shirt, khaki pants, and a black tie.
Khaki, and black.
And you had that little fire department hat where they wear on a dress uniform.
Sure,
You
that
had
was
that.
difficult
And you
to
had to
keep
wear
clean.
that
Yeah,
back and forth.
that was the uniform.
That was uniform, and you had
no
make
names,
sure-
no names. No.
Oh, you had a name tag?
Oh, you got a name tag. A little
Yeah,
name
they
tag.
doing
Okay,
anything,
yeah.
and then they had the badge.
They had the badge. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to mention, and I was going to mention it whenever you talked about the box alarms that would come in. Colby had mentioned something about the map drills. You said you had some kind of a map test that you had possibly implemented, and possibly the effect that it had on the department. But I'm giving you, if you wanted to go over that.
That was probably one of my unpopular periods. I had a great crew.
Sure.
I did. Those guys at Station 5, I had Station 6, Station 3, to Station 5.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those guys, I was strict.
Mm-hmm.
I came up through the ranks. You wasn't gonna bullshit me. I knew what a fireman could get away with. I knew what a driver could get away with. I knew what a captain I knew what a captain would try to get away with.
Sure.
And back then we were restricted to districts heavily.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't go outside that district for nothing. One day I had a fire call, and they would know. That's when we started getting a training center. We didn't have the training center. We trained in back on Bertrand Drive, and back at that water district.
Yep.
Where we would train because
Still
we had
there.
a tower back there. But when we had to make hose lays, we were restricted but we learned, and then later on, I think even after I retired, they built a new training center, which I thought was really neat.
Sure.
When I lost my train of thought for a little while.
We were talking about with the map test
Yes,
that you had.
thank you for that. Yes,
sure.
so we have a call, and then I hadn't started the map drills yet.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the important things now you have to remember, we don't have communications yesterday. We don't have electronics. I don't have a computer. I don't have a GPS.
Yeah.
I gotta go to the map and spot the plug, and first of all, I gotta find out a way to go.
Gotta get your
I
route.
gotta select the route.
Sure.
And I would tell the guys, learn the map. Learn where you're going. I said, listen, I would have a meeting. I said, listen, everybody gets nervous when we start having a call. When the 5 bells ring, that means we got a fire somewhere. We're going into action. Let's get ready. One of the things I don't want you to be worried about is how you get your ass to the fire in the first place. Sure. Worry about what you're going to do when you get to the fire and size up the fire after that. Don't worry about getting there or not knowing how to get there.
Sure.
Everybody agreed. So I didn't implement that in fire tests yet, street learning things I had. And look, I was chastised for that, buddy, I tell you.
Well, what'd you do? What was the thing that you?
I made them study the map. I'd give tests on them myself.
Yeah.
I'd get a blank and they'd have to put all the roads.
They have to put the roads. Yeah. That I've heard about that. I don't know if you were the only. So I've heard that was a thing in the past. It's not something that we do anymore. It's not something that we've ever done.
No, you don't need it because you have all the electronics at your disposal. But back in the day,
I've heard stories of the map test, but I didn't know if it was something that you started and then it spread, or if it was something that only you did.
I think it was only I did on my
Okay.
shift.
Well,
I don't know
I've
if
heard
it started after that, but
I've heard
This-
your story then.
this is what did it. We got a call. And I'm just going to say I was on another crew.
Sure.
I get a call and we got a working fire. And it's somewhere in back of Blackham Coliseum. And listen, I knew the map. I know Lafayette, And I got to the map and I knew where I was going. I spotted the plug and I knew where I was going. And way back in back of Blackham Coliseum, we had, but in back of USL, way back then, you had all them little turns and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see it burning. And I'm there. I'm first on the scene in my unit. So I have engine 5 and engine 6 coming. And the aerial. So when I get there and the homeowner's there, and he comes out screaming. Now his garage is right on the side. That's what's on fire. No, between his house and his garage, his garage is 150 feet wide. He's got all antique automobiles in there. I hear the engine's coming. After a while, man, it sounds like, I said, engine 5, what's your 20? Coming, Chief. It's okay. Engine 6, what's your 20? And that guy's,
Yeah. Yeah. He's in your ear.
what the hell?
Right. And he's hearing.
I said, they're coming, T. Don't worry about that.
Coming to you.
All of a sudden, it sounded like they're going away from me.
Sure.
I said, engine 5, what's your 20? It was a long silence.
Yeah. What are we going to say?
And look, there's some Liberty one-way roads.
Yes. Yeah. They still back there.
He said, Chief, we took a wrong turn. That's engine 5. I said, okay. He said, I got to go find a way out of here. I said, engine 6, what's your 20? He said, we're in back of station 5. Engine 5. I did. Oh my God. And I got screaming, and he hears the conversation.
Oh,
He said, are they lost? I said, no, sir. I said, they got in those little one-ways back there, and they got to find a way out. And I said, those trucks are big.
right.
Engine 5, aerial 5, engine 6.
All together, following each other through
It's a
a
traffic
mess.
jam.
They get on the scene. I'm out of control.
Oh man.
They ended up parking the aerial about 4 blocks down. So we put the fire out.
Right.
And luckily the guy it wasn't that bad, but he had a lot of heat damage and stuff.
Right.
I got back to station 5.
We got to fix it.
But anyway, at the scene, he says, one of the captains comes up to me and said, Chief, he said, the aerial is way back there, about 4 blocks. He says, and we needed a smoke ejector and the generator. He said, you want me to bring you the aerial? I said, I want you to get your ass over there and walk all the way 5 blocks. I want you to walk and get the aerial, get the generator and the smoke ejector and the lights. I want you to walk over there.
Yeah.
So
Mad.
okay. So we get back to 5, and everybody's not saying nothing. And I'm there. I said, so I called the 2 captains in my office. I said, y'all need to come see him. I said, what happened? And they misread it was confusing because, it was all kind of ways you could make turns and get lost and stuff like that. So I told them, I said, things are going to change tomorrow. I went in their districts now, and I made a copy of their district, only a certain part of their district. And I shaded all of the roads out. I had the secretary for the fire chief do that for me, actually. And I made copies. And I said, I want you to study the map. And I said, fill in the blank. I said, the plug's already spotted there. Fill in the blank. Tell me what road that is. And I said, I want you to train everybody. Well, when I got to the subs, when I got to 3 and 6, I thought I'd shot somebody over there. One of the guys said, I don't think I'm going to do it. I said, you can't force it to do that. Oh, I said, buddy, I might not be able to force you to do it. I said, but I can make your job hell. I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
So it worked out. Later on it came, and some of the firefighters said that they appreciated all of that, especially when they made driver. It was like, oh hell yeah. I don't have to worry about none of that. I can just, just like I said. So it was.
Sometimes, we're all grown men. We know that. But sometimes it is a little bit of a child mentality where, you punish your let's say your preteen or your teenager, and they don't understand why you doing what you're doing. And then you grow into an adult and you go, oh, I appreciate the things my dad made me do. Sometimes it takes some of that where, you're not going to like this right now, but the long-term benefit, you're going to be better on the other end. It sucks doing it right now. Because we could be smoking and joking and cutting up or watching Young and the Restless or whatever y'all did in the 70s. But it was the long-term benefit on the other end. Boy, I guarantee there's guys that had to fill that map out that if you talk to them today, I'm glad Chief Ray.
And then I was the only one. So that's what made it really bad.
Yeah, he got a little target on you. It didn't expand.
Listen, one guy said, I can't even get a car to DT with me. I said, what?
Because
He said,
he got
he's
to do
afraid
math.
they're going to have to take the road test. I said, come on, man. It's not that bad.
It's true.
But
It's true. It's not that bad. You're right.
yeah, but it's not that bad. But they appreciated it after a while, especially like I said, the guys that made driver. They said, man, first thing I do when I go to a new district, I'll go to the map and I'm riding. You know, and it makes a lot of sense that you would not have to worry about it. We got enough to worry about, you know.
Sure.
So yeah, I was the guy, but none of the other
The other
None of the
captains and DCs didn't pick that up, huh?
didn't pick that up.
Yeah. Well, I heard stories because I've
Oh,
heard
I
that
brought it
story,
back
but clearly it was you.
Yeah,
So, anything else that you want to jump on the list?
I have to look at my list.
Yeah. See what we got. We got fitness. We got a couple of your life saving awards, which I know Ray doesn't want to talk about it, but there's at least 5 on here, so we've covered a couple of those. Anything else that you jotted down?
One of the things that I did not understand when I got to tell everybody
Sure.
that originally when Chris called me to be a part of a podcast, listen, I'm a kid of the 60s. I said, a pod what? He said, podcast. And he said, I'm going to interview you, and I got some of your friends come up. And I said, well, yeah. And he said, listen, and he told me that directly on the phone. He said, listen, he says, I want nothing but positive from all my interviews. If you have anything negative, I don't want you. And if you remember what I told you, you will not find another person on the planet that loves the fire service more than me. I can't be more positive than I am.
Sure.
At one time, it's still today. I belong to that Christian first responder group. With Wayne, we give awards to firefighters that did a rescue during the year. We have a big banquet. We give them awards. It's really neat. I believe in the fire service. That's why when my son was looking for a job and my nephew, I told him, I said, if you are destined to be a firefighter, it's the best job on the planet. It is. It's rewarding. More than anything, it's rewarding. Today, when I tell you what base pay was in 1966,
Yeah, I actually have that in my notes. I wasn't going to bring it up.
$300 a month.
Whoa! So I talked to.
You can't even pay your taxes with that today.
I talked to. I called Bebo. Well, actually, was talking to Bebo, but when we did the last podcast, and I said, "Hey, we got Ray coming on," and he wanted me to mention Elmo Robin, who retired in the 70s. He said he retired in 1970. And it came back to pay. Because that was what Bebo was talking about, of how there's a pension, but man, the pay back then was rough, and it's not nearly what it is. So I don't know if you had any run-ins with Elmo.
I remember all of those guys when I was talking about Bill Vise. Easton Duga was my driver. Frank Como, Oris Guidry. I can name all of the firefighters that I worked with, almost on every shift. And those were some fine guys. I just remember that. It was something I will never forget. And it's probably because of that I remember the fire service as positive as I did.
Gerard Saunier said the same thing at the end of his podcast. He goes, you can, if you do other services, I'm not gonna say any other professions, but you're not gonna come out with the stories and the family like when you at the end of this career, you got stories, a lot of good stories, a lot of good memories. Whereas if you go do other things at the end of your 30 years, 40 years, you don't have those stories. They really don't exist. You go in, you serve a function, and then you move on. And the fire service is special in that way that we spend so much time together that maybe there's too much time for shenanigans, but there's also with the type of response that we do with the emergency services, it's this weird tornado vortex of the perfect conditions for stories, for wild things to happen, for silly things to happen, for pranks, for all of this. What other profession, where you're going an hour and a half to Pecan Island, where you got 3 firemen in the back, you look for them, and they're all tucked up, they're all snuggling in the hose bed because it's cold to go put out this big giant fire. It doesn't exist everywhere. The fire department's special.
I owe everything to the fire service my whole life, since I was 21 years old. And I tell you why. I was working ET one day at at Station 2, and Whitney Guidry was my captain on another shift. So he looks at me, he says, "You don't want to become a carpenter?" I looked at him and said, "Hell yeah." He said, "Look, I got a job going on." And he said, "You can start tomorrow and work 3, 3, and 3." But I was ET. And, both his sons ended up coming on the fire department. He was a captain, Jerry Guidry and Malcolm Guidry. Sadly, they both passed away. And they both left the fire service before retiring. And it's because of Whitney that I learned the construction business and was able to finally make some money, and go work part-time. Again, I owe that to the fire service. And, Chris and Skip, one of the things I never could understand, I had Rayburn Bertrand, Kenny Bowen, Douglas Traps, and Joy Durrell as mayors. I could never understand those guys or anyone out there, a politician, not wanting to use the fire service to their benefit. And I'll tell you what I'm talking about. The fire service in general is the best PR program you have anywhere. If mayors and city managers
I like
would
what you
only
said
realize
about the fire
that.
service, going back to
We
the
do.
fire
We ask to
service,
do
you
anything
owe
that you
everything
want us
to
to
it
do.
about spawning
Another
off
thing on the flip
part-time
side of
job,
that,
because that spawns off
the
a lot of
public will
opportunities,
trust
and I've
you.
had
They
a very
trust the
similar, a very similar
They know,
deal.
hey, we
you
go
make
get
a
cats out of
connection, you
trees,
start
we
with
do
the fire
whatever you want.
service,
And I'm
you make a
serious.
connection that leads to a different job.
Some of the
That
guys,
job, that opportunity
mayors
leads
I'm talking
to
about,
another opportunity,
us
and then
tooth
you
and
start
nail.
to network. And like I said, it becomes not
whatever
only for
reason,
your
I could never
pension and
figure
not only
that
for the
out.
benefits that job supplies.
why not
But all of the other
embrace the
things
fire
that you
service
learn and the
use
stepping stones
them
where
to
you hop
your
from one thing
benefit?
to another, that kind of fulfills and kind of rounds out who you are. I like that because I've experienced that myself.
In fact, it's like, listen, one of the mayors came, and back in the day, not like the union had to be strong. We had a strong union simply because we had to go to the state legislature for a 2% longevity raise. We had to go to the state legislature. We're making $300 base pay, but we wanted 2% at the end of the year. We had to fight that. We had to make it into law. If you remember, if you do your research on your history, Wayne Frazier was union president. You see? So
Yeah, it was before my time.
yeah, well, I know it was.
Yeah, a long time.
But all of the guys, if they wanted to be promoted, they had to do it in the union. Most of them. One of the mayors, and we were having a meeting, and I forgot what it was for. He said he had got elected, and he's running for the second term. And he took away our ET, exchange of time. Now, why would you want to take a fireman's exchange of time privilege away just for spite? And he hated us. For whatever reason, I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, that's the worst political mistake you're going to ever make in your life, is taking away that exchange. He laughed at me. I said, them firemen rely on that. He said, why they rely on that? They got so much time off. So you're not listening to me. You're not understanding the fireman's life. We're working at night. We're sleeping, yeah. But we're working. We risk our lives every day. Every single day, we risk our lives for you. And so you're going to take our exchange of time away. And at that time, I think we had 150 employees on the fire department. But 150 pissed off firemen can lose an election for you. And he did. And the first thing that new mayor came in was to reinstate that exchange of time. Just to say,
Yeah, lesson learned.
we, again, I can't understand why politicians said, like for instance, like the ambulance service. Why can't we have the ambulance service? Why couldn't we have that? Why couldn't we have? This is what happened. I got interviewed for the chief's position. I knew I didn't stand a fighting chance. So in the interview, they asked me, if I appoint you fire chief, will you get rid of that 2% longevity? And I looked at him, I said, are you joking? I said, I was one of the guys in the state legislature over there talking to all of the politicians over there. I said, I'd be a hypocrite. I said, not no, but hell no. I knew it was costing me my job. I didn't care. And I told him, I said, this is what I can do for you. I said, I can take your fire service today. And I said, my objective in the fire service is to bring fire stations to every one of them small towns. Cameron Crowe, Dusel, everything in Lafayette Parish. I want to put a Lafayette fire station there with firemen. That's before we started having fire stations here. Y'all ended up much better off. Trust me. And they said, what do you mean? I said, I'm telling you, my dream is to have, we have 200 employees. I want to have 500. I want to have a fire station in Cameron Crowe, or maybe 2, where we can respond, and it's going to be all under the heading of, and that's when they were talking about consolidation of parish and city joining in. And that's been a constant fight with politicians. It could probably be a favorite subject they're talking about the next council meeting. Mm-hmm. You know, we're going to stop mutual aid. Are we going to do that just because 2 politicians get in an argument?
Sure.
And it's happened.
Sure.
You know, that's why Cameron Crowe, that's why Scott, that's why they have their own fire department. They didn't want to fool with none of that. I got my own stuff.
Yeah.
And again, I'll say, you're much better off. But then I knew it was a fighting battle. I was never going to get the job. Yeah. I'm not going to say who got the job, but I never got it.
Related, but I know it's important to you. Let's take a second to talk about your passion for Cajun French music and trying to keep the heritage alive. Now, I'll say real quick, I'm doing nothing to keep it alive. However, my grandparents, similar to so many around the area, my grandparents grew up only speaking Cajun French.
Sure. And
then when they went through school, they got fussed at, slapped on the wrist, slapped on the hand for talking French to try to pull everybody over to English. So I don't have that. I can't speak French, but I do have Landry and Hebert. So I've got a lot of that, and I know that's important to you, especially with the music side also. So I wanted you to speak on that to whatever degree you'd like to, and then we'll clean it up with my final question.
Sure.
But go speak on that.
Well, my grandfather was an accordion player, and I loved the music from the day I was born. He would play it for us till the day he passed, and I knew that I wanted to play Cajun music, so I did. But working shift work, very little I could do. I joined the CFMA, Cajun French Music Association, probably about 38 years ago. We're 40 years old today, so and I knew that's what. And I have become really involved with them. I served in every capacity of the CFMA. President and vice president of Lafayette chapter, and a national board representative, and we do everything it takes to preserve Cajun music as we knew it. Traditional Cajun music is the key word. And I've been very lucky. One day I decided, and back in the day when you were playing, you had to try to find jam sessions. You could play at the house. I found a jam session in Basile, Louisiana, at the Main Street Lounge on a Thursday night. I thought I'd went to Cajun music heaven. All of my idols, the people that I listened to the music, the Balfour Brothers, Ale Young, all of those guys were playing there. And every night I was off on Thursday, provided that my wife would let me go. If I wasn't working that day, I'd go to the Main Street Lounge.
Check in with the
probably
boss.
Wouldn't get back till the next day. But I mean, it was neat. And I met a guy named Nokale Young and Vincent Fontenot and all of those guys in the Basile Cajun Band. And eventually I took over the Basile Cajun Band from Nokale when he passed. And Cajun music has been very good to me. We have released a couple of CDs. I have done well. In fact, my CD still sells at Vermilionville. I got to bring 100 copies there tomorrow. Just to say, I've been awarded with the Male Vocalist of the Year, Song of the Year, Female Vocalist of the Year. So They've been very kind to me. And my music career, that's it. I still have a jam session at Vermilionville on Saturday afternoons. And actually, we're going to be 19 years old in February that we're there. I've got a grant from the National Board of the CFMA that pays 2 professional musicians. Most of the time, it's an accordion player and a fiddle player. And then you get all the rest of us amateurs there. And that's one of the things when I started going to the jam sessions that my jam session has, and I learned that from the Main Street, was that they needed a bass. The rest of the musicians needed a bass to follow. They could just start playing, but then they had no leadership and so that jam session at Vermilionville, it's the best out there.
You mostly play accordion or
No, now I just play guitar. Actually,
okay.
I do
bass.
this, and this is what it is. I have an accordion player
Right.
and a fiddle player.
Okay.
And so I don't want to take nothing from him, but then other people are invited. And if you're a beginner, you're going to get your shot. You're going to get a chance. And it's, like this last Saturday, I probably had 25 musicians and probably 150 tourists. I can assure you that our music and our culture has been around the world 10 times because you got people that go to Vermilionville that's exposed to traditional Cajun music.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about playing and singing in French, and it's very popular. The professional musicians that come play have an opportunity to make on Saturday afternoon 2 hours. They have an opportunity to make some money, and the rest of them get a chance to go play with professional musicians. I think you're never going to get the chance to play with those guys, and they do.
Right. It's a little bit special to me. It's not something I don't listen to traditional Cajun music if I have a choice. If I'm listening to Spotify, I don't put it on. But I know that we visited my grandparents pretty often. They just both the ones that spoke they spoke Cajun growing up. They both recently passed, but I know that when we'd go over there, every Saturday and Sunday, usually, it's Cajun music.
Oh, sure.
100% of the time, which is separate from Zydeco. They're related, but it's a separate thing.
That's right.
But they loved traditional Cajun. So anytime I hear it, there is a piece of my childhood that it kind of hits the nerve center. It hits the brain, and it feels good because it reminds me of being at mom and pop's house.
That's right.
And they danced to it at Randall's. They danced at Randall's just about every Friday and Saturday night that they could get away with.
Well, if they would have came on a Thursday, they would have danced to the music of Ray Landry.
I didn't really know you before this, Ray. I'd only heard stories about you, but had I known that you had that connection, I could have talked to my mom and pop. I guarantee they would have. There's not a chance that they would not have known you because they were there religiously. Like that was their thing to do. They didn't eat there because the food was too spicy at Randall's for my pop, but they went to dance. That's what they went to do. So
and sadly, 90% of the population there are like you.
Sure.
Either their mom and dad, like me, their mom and dad or their grandfather and grandmother played it or listened to it.
Yeah.
And they watched Aldous Roger on Saturday afternoon, Belton Reshort on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that why I was so involved with CFMA. We're trying to preserve that, and we're doing it. We have probably 3,000 members, 7 chapters.
So I appreciate you sharing that.
Sure.
We're gonna tie it up because we're all running a little long. We're gonna tie it up with, you've already talked about I always ask everybody in these types of settings, who are your mentors that help coach you up? You've already mentioned that name. Mention it again. What's
Bill Vizet.
Bill Vizet. Yeah, I like to hear from me. I didn't really have a mentor, so I like hearing about the guys in the fire service that come in where there's somebody else, that there's that trusted person that they can go to if they're struggling with something, if they've got something kind of going on. And also that guy has a vested interest in showing this guy the right way to do the job and kind of guiding his career and his path. So you already covered the mentor. What I'm even asking, I don't even know if I didn't know if you knew that I was going to ask you that, but I asked it to Spell and Gerard and all those guys, Sam Sparacello. But anyway, you've got that one knocked out. The second thing I always ask is, you have a long history in the fire service, came in from way back. If you and you've been a little while since you've been retired, but if you had to go talk to a rookie Ray Landry, just getting on the fire department, maybe right before you saw the car fire explode and engulf everybody, if you had to give that Ray Landry advice, knowing what you know now, what would you tell a rookie Ray Landry?
Well, he became a fireman, so he wanted to be a fireman. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. You got all this history. You've worked through the job. What would you go back and tell rookie Ray Landry before he got on the job, knowing everything that you know now? What advice would you give him?
I would give him the same advice that Bill gave me. I would tell him, say, look, you're going to be out there. Training is one of the most important things. You can't have enough training.
I love to hear that.
Simply because, like we were talking about the roads a while ago, you don't want to have to stop and think about what to do. It's got to come almost automatic. And when you're sizing up a call, and every single call is different, you got to be ready to respond to all types of situations. Like the water rescue we did. We didn't have a clue. You have to train yourself where you don't have to be, I don't know what to do in this situation. If you were to train for it, you'd know what to do. So I would tell a rookie firefighter, when you're a fireman, learn everything there is to know about fighting the fire. When you're a driver, learn everything about the pump, learn everything about the truck. That way,
Maps.
when you're a captain, you have, and listen, you and I know there are firefighters out there. They don't do nothing until they make rank.
Yeah.
And they come and say, well, I remember you when you didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're an officer and you're telling me how to do everything, but I don't think you know how to do it.
Right.
Because you never did it. They could never accuse Ray Landry of that. I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
That'd be one of the things. Learn as much as you can to make your job simpler, to know what to do in an emergency situation. Where, I know, even today, you have sectoring. We never had that. We just begin that. We started beginning that when we had the 3 districts. And I know that helps. Stuff like that. Back in the day, too, we had assistant chiefs would ride out almost every call. Sure. You got district chiefs to do that today. That assistant chief is doing paperwork in his office, and he's hating it.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't met too many assistant chiefs that go, man, I really love all this paperwork I'm doing. Chief Spell, Lonnie Spell, he would sit at his AC's office, in the AC's office with all of his paperwork and his big desk, and he'd joke and he'd go, I used to fight fires. Yeah. I used dreaming on the time where that's what we all joined the fire department for. You don't really see yourself when you first join the fire department. Whenever we all first joined, we didn't think, man, I'd really love to build schedules and make sure that the parts are there for certain. Like nobody thinks that, but you end up in that role.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's it. Train more, train often, train more.
Train more, train.
I mean, I like that.
Every rank. You need to be training your job.
Man,
and look,
couldn't be a more perfect answer, I don't think. For
if a driver comes, say, well, listen, why, driver comes up to you, say, listen, see, I noticed that lately, I was 2 firemen were at the burning house, and you wasn't giving them water. What's the deal in that? Mm-hmm. Well, I lost the primer. That's bullshit, T. I was there. I did all of that.
Right.
You can't lie to me.
Yeah.
I know how the job should be done. And you didn't do it, so let's fess up.
Yeah,
training is the most important thing.
Good. So, we love to hear it.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to come and tell the story of Ray Landry.
Thanks for coming.
I'm gonna tell my audience, you can't be sure that all of that's true.
When I first reached out to you, Ray, I asked for a little short bio, and Skip, I didn't tell you this, but I asked for a little short, like, hey, how long have you been on? What are the couple of things you did? Just a real short thing, so I can post it up to the Instagram. And he tells me, hey, I got a box. Can I come bring it by your house? I was like, Ray, what in the hell do you have a box for? I don't need a box of stuff. He's like, well, it's all my certs and my. I was like, Ray, nobody's fact checking you.
It's
on
not an interview.
Yeah, it's not
a job interview.
I'm not hiring you, and nobody's gonna go. man, I think Ray's full of shit. I want to see some of his paperwork. Like, we just want to hear what the stories that Ray's got to talk about. But yeah, he was concerned about that fact checking that was going to come through.
One thing I'm gonna come back, and of course we all know that firemen can play jokes.
Yeah.
In fact, I came in with a couple of guys that you didn't play joke on him.
Right.
I mean, they were vicious.
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys too. And one day I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna tell you about some of the pranks we pulled.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have the potential. We'll have you. When we bring Colby, we'll talk about it later. But maybe when we have Colby on, we'll potentially wrangle you back in. Colby will do his thing, his normal Colby thing, and maybe you can, kind of chime in and
I think some of the things we did was illegal.
Yeah.
We might leave that part out.
Yeah. I'm joking.
All right, so Ray, we appreciate you coming
thanks.
on. Thank you for your time.
Sure.
Thank you for your patience, and we appreciate your history. And that's part of what we're doing here. So
thank you.
Thank you guys for watching another episode of the Dragon's Den podcast. I've never said this before, but we got to like and subscribe, and maybe comment. I hate asking for stuff, but if you want to see more, let us know. Talk to us. So thanks again. We appreciate y'all.